Coco is.
Where's Coco? Everybody try to get situated with your chair before we even get started so that you have room to be behind your chair and to reach at your thing. If you need to pull your chair out away from the station some, that's fine. If you need to push your chair to the left a little bit, that's fine, because if everybody's right-handed, everybody's shifting their chair to the left, nobody should be bothered by that. Make sure your kits are under your stations, out of everybody's way. That'll also keep you from dropping product on your kit. You may want to, or I suggest that you make sure that the pump to your chair is where you're standing. So if this is my chair, and I'm using my station right here, I don't want the pump to that chair over here. Because I don't want to walk around the chair to pump it up, pump it down every time. No more than I want to reach across my body every time in order to reach the bowl of product. So you want to be comfortable so that your product is sitting to your right-hand side and that your pump is at your feet and not on the other side. Your pump's on your other side. So you may have to shift the chair around. But you want to be able to work so that your station is comfortable. Being that everybody's right-handed today, it's going to work out that you won't be in anybody's way. Before we leave for lunch, we will arrange stuff back as if, or as the way it was when we come in, so that it's not off center. Today we are going to move pretty quick. We move pretty quick every day because I've only got y'all for 3 hours at a time. It kind of makes it tough to get everything in. Typically when I do a demo, y'all are going to use cholesterol. Today we're going to use color. The reason being is if you use cholesterol, you can't see your mistakes. So with fulls, it's super important to learn what you're doing and why as far as the placement of the full. If the placement of your full is wrong, your end result can be totally jacked up. I'm not going to go into a whole lot about mistakes until you have them. Then we can talk about how you got it. Because you're not going to understand nothing that I say as far as this is going to cause this, this is going to cause that, until you can see it. Well, I don't understand what she's talking about. I don't know what that means. But today when we do get started, it'll be after the demo. You'll bring your bowl and your brush up here. You don't necessarily need your brush, you'll bring your bowl up here. We're going to measure the color the same on the scale that we did with the lightener last week. So it will be measured in grams. You'll turn it on. You'll put your bowl on there. You'll make sure it says a little G in that bottom corner. You will make sure that it's on 0. If you put your bowl on there and it says anything besides 0, then your measurement's going to be wrong. Or if it says 2, then you need to know that you're starting at 2. 15, whatever. So it's just easier to let you to start at 0. We're going to do probably 12 or 15 grams of color today. If you read the box of color, the tube of color, it says on there to mix 1 to 1. So what does that mean?
15.
What is it?
15 and 15.
15 and 15, yep.
Equal.
Equal parts, yep. Last week when I said that lightener is a different animal, you do exactly what they tell you to do if it's 1 to 1, 1 to 2, 1 to 10. But then if it's too thick for you, or if it's too this for you, or too that for you, most hairstylists adjust that accordingly. Everybody has their own consistency that they like. But know what you're supposed to do first before you try to start breaking the rules. Not everybody's going to tell you to do that. Jessie, she might be instructing you in a different class. You might be mixing up lightener, and she might tell you if it says mix 1 to 1, mix 1 to 1. Do not pour any extra. Do not argue with them. There are some salons, depending on where you work, who you're working for, that are very specific on exactly what the recommendations are. So if you're working somewhere, let's say that you're working at Van Michaels in Atlanta. He's got 9 or 10 salons around town, around Atlanta. He is very, very precise on every single thing he does. If he caught you doing something so minor, or what would seem as so minor, he could probably fire you. He might, he might talk to you first. But depending on where you work, depending on what you're doing, it could be very specific. Color, if it says mix 1 to 1, you mix 1 to 1. Do y'all remember why? Good morning. Do you remember why I said that you mix color 1 to 1, you don't veer off? So when you look at a swatch book, so the matrix swatch books are back here. When you look at a swatch book, they started on a white swatch. So if it says 6 BC, that means it's a level 6, and it has a description on there, light brown copper. If you're following all the rules for mixing, how to formulate for this person's hair, and it says mix 1 to 1, and you mix it 1 to 3, what's going to happen? Is it going to be lighter or darker? What's that?
Lighter.
Yep. So you're diluting it down. At that point, it's like taking food color and you just keep pouring water in it. You're diluting it down. You're changing that red to an almost red, a maybe red. So if it says you mix it 1 to 3 and you mix it 1 to 1, what's going to happen? It's going to be darker. So you can follow every single step to formulate somebody's color. And then if you do not follow the recommendations for color, you will either totally screw it up, she's gonna love it, you're not gonna know what you did next time. You're gonna come in, you're gonna be, oh, I used a 6 BC on Susie. We're gonna do it again. You didn't use a scale, you didn't mix it exact. Guess what? She's gonna think you used a different color. She's not gonna have the same depth that she got before. So when I have somebody new, I don't take anybody new anymore. When I did, I would keep a little index card with their name, their natural level, what we were trying to achieve, and how I mixed it that day. If I mixed it 1 to 2 and they loved it, then I know next time it's 1 to 2. If I mixed it 1 to 2 and they hated it, but they liked the general color of it, then I know that I could just change that ratio to maybe 1 to 1. So does that make sense to everybody? Lightener, you follow the recommendations, and then if you need to tweak it a little bit for the consistency that you like, I say that's okay. Color, if it says 1 to 1, you mix it 1 to 1. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, okay? So, highlighting is an art that can be used 1,000 different ways to create dimension in the hair, or to baby step somebody to go lighter, baby step somebody to go darker. How many people have gone to the salon, you've had dark hair, and then you told them you wanted platinum, and they said, oh, let's don't do this all at one time? Anybody in here had that happen? Okay. It's because if you go from even a level 6, which is right in the middle of the road, down to a 10 all over your head, you're like, whoa, I just went from like midnight to daylight. It's scary when you look in the mirror. But if you were to do a heavy highlight and leave some of that color in there for a dimension, it's not as scary from a stark dark difference. Right now it's the season of everybody wants to go darker. It's getting fall. It's going to be winter. Everybody wants to go darker. Everybody wants to go red. Everybody wants to go copper. Everybody wants those fall colors. If you take somebody with my color hair and you just put a level 5 mahogany on it, I'm going to look in the mirror and be a little bit scared. I'm like, what happened to my head? What's going on? I just went like too stark dark. But if you baby step it and you do some highlights or lowlights at that point, it's an easier transition for people. When you're doing a low light, so a highlight is typically you're lifting the hair. A low light, you're depositing something in there. The technique is foiling, okay? So if you are low lighting the hair, should you use permanent color, demi-permanent, semi-permanent? CJ, I ain't got a clue. I'm gonna let you tell me. Okay, so remember what I said about permanent hair color. Permanent hair color is used mainly for clients with gray hair, okay? Typically, this down here has already had something done to it, okay? So this down here may not need a permanent color. It's already had something done. Typically, it's the roots that are going to be gray and need a touch-up. So if you were foiling at the root only and you're covering gray, then you might want to use a permanent hair color at the root. If you're doing low lights and you are just giving that person dimension for whatever reason, change of season, they just change their hair a lot, demi-permanent color is going to be your best friend. What does demi-permanent color do?
Deposits color without making it.
Yes. Ding, ding, ding. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. So, what does demi-permanent also do over the next few weeks?
Fades.
Fades out, okay? So, let's say that you go through and you do a permanent hair color. She comes back 5 weeks later. She doesn't like that color no more. Is it hard or easy to remove? Not permanent. Yeah, no, not permanent. Permanent's gonna make it harder to get that out. So when you do demi-permanent color, it's meant to fade out no matter what technique you use. If you paint it from the scalp to the ends, or if you paint it just on the ends, or if you do foils, no matter what technique you use, demi-permanent is still going to do what over the next few weeks? Fade out. Will it fade out 100%? Probably not. But it's going to be a whole lot easier to give them a different color and it be demi-permanent and not permanent. When they come back the next 5, 6, 8 weeks, however your client is, some of them come back once a year. When they come back the next go around, are you going to pick up the exact same pattern of foiling that you did a few weeks before? If you're good, you can. I've never met that person though, never. So, the next go around, somebody comes in, you might be doing your foiling and you're doing your little weave pattern. Doo, 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 doo. That piece might be really dark. You've got lightener in your bowl. So that piece is going to lighten different than the piece that's under here that you weave out and it's already light. If you pick up a piece that's already light and you're highlighting, do you touch up the root only, or do you pull it 100% through from scalp to ends? Root only. That's when you might paint just a little bit here, kick that hair out so that it's hanging out on the foil, close that foil up, okay? So if you're using demi-permanent color, this time you're doing a highlight, a low light, a highlight, a low light, all over the head. Next time you go to pick up a piece of hair, you're trying to change that color, you pick up this hair, and at that point, you can still see the color on there. You know that it had color done the appointment before. It won't be as bad on the hair if that falls to your highlight piece, because it's not breaking down a permanent color at that point. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So I put 12 foils for everybody on their station. I'm not going to do 12 foils, but I am going to do a demo on foiling. Once everybody gets started, if you have any questions, Jesse and I both will walk around and assist everybody. You are not going to get this today. You are not going to be a master highlighting foil, whatever, today. Today we are going to use color because last week we used lightener. So this way, when we do your highlights, or it'll actually be considered a low light today, when you're going to put color back in the hair. Does anybody remember what level we determined this to be last week? 7. Yep. So if I'm putting color back in the hair, what do I know I have to do? Okay. Yep. Go darker. If this is a 7 and I put an 8 color on here, what's going to happen? Probably nothing. Color does not lift color. If this was natural hair and I was putting a color on with a 20 volume, it would lift how many levels? 2. And deposit at the same time. Okay? But if you're just depositing only, you've got to stay at the same level or go darker. If you were at the same level at that point, what are you doing? If you were going to put a level 7 something on the hair, what would you be doing? To cool. Yep. And what have I always said? You lift up, you tone down. It does not matter what technique you're using, that's still the same theory. So if you're putting a level 7 warm on here, you might see a tonal change. If you put a level 7 cool on top of a level 7, you may waste your time. Rule of thumb, you lift it up, you cool it down. Okay? You get the fire super.
Use the 6. Use the 6.
6. Yes. So think about a fire. That fire gets really hot. You want to cool it down. What you gonna do? You're gonna throw some water on it. You're gonna cool it down. You're gonna bring it down a notch. Okay? So everybody's got their mannequins set up, 4-part section. Everybody have their smocks on today. Remember, starting today, no smocks. It's 10 points off you lab grade. We checked with the bookstore last week. As far as your kits, unless something came in from when we checked until now, you should have everything but some clips, I think, and your hairdryer. If you want to bring a hairdryer from home, you are welcome to. If you don't necessarily have to. We are going to need hairdryers though. We only have so many to use for the school, and we're sharing from that room over there to this room. So at this point, everybody should have what they need for this class minus a blow dryer. We will share as much as we can. I said this last week. I think I said it to this class. I'll repeat this. If you borrow from somebody and you break it, what happens? You pay for it. You owe that person another hairdryer. I feel like that's extremely fair. So if you borrow anything from anybody in this class, you give it back to them in the exact same shape they let you borrow it in. I have clips. If I let you borrow this clip, do I want it back with color all on it? Nope. Do I want it back with bleach on it? Nope. Don't do that to your classmates either. It's not their place to have to spend their money in order to replace something that they were kind enough to let you use for a minute. In the salon, same way. If you don't feel like that person can replace your hairdryer that cost you $200, that person is bumming money every day just for $5 of gas here and there, don't let them use your hairdryer. You won't get it back. You might get it back broke if they drop it, but if they drop it and break it, you're gonna be out a $200 hairdryer until you go buy another one. I do not recommend you ever, for any reason, let anybody in this classroom borrow your scissors. If you drop your scissors, they are done. Done. The ones that came in the kit are not crazy expensive, but you still don't want to replace something that you don't have to replace, okay? So, just be super mindful and respectful of everybody's stuff. Are you left-handed, Coco?
I am.
Okay, so what we did, okay, so it works out. So what we did, when you are working, you want to be on the side that you're working. So if you need to shift your chair so that you are here and everything is left-handed, that's the way you want to shift your chair. You'll want to shift your chair, if you need to pull it out, if you need to push it over a little bit, we should have enough room for everybody to do that, but at the end of the day, we're gonna put it back. So I did not put my mannequin in a 4-part section. Y'all need to do that though, just because you are learning sections of the head. In your hair cutting class, have they gone over keeping the front of the head separate from the back of the head? No? Okay. Well, never mind. In color class, you keep your sections separate because there is a front of the head and there is a back of the head. Hair is going to fall in its natural place. A cowlick, for example, it's doing all kinds of crazy stuff and it's sticking this way and it's sticking that way. That's the way it's gonna fall no matter what you do to it. So you have to work around that, whether you're cutting or coloring. And then styling, you just hope to God it works out in your favor. So if you know where the hair's natural fall is, whether it's gonna go in front of the ear or behind the ear, at that point, if you wanted to see red around the face, you pick up a piece of hair right here or right here. What's the chances that that's gonna be seen at the face? Slim to none. So if you have your mannequin parted off and you pull this up and you take a piece of hair right here at the face, what's the chances that it's gonna show on the face? So that's why it's super important to know the sections of the head. Have y'all talked about the parietal ridge in your hair cutting class?
Yes.
Okay, so the parietal ridge separates the bottom half of the head all the way around and the top half. If for color, if she wants the underneath of her hair brown and the top half blonde, what's gonna be your rule of thumb just from what I just said? Below that ridge. So when you are finding the top of the head and you put your comb here and it balances here, then you know that's the apex. That right there is about, and a mannequin's a little iffy because its ears are a little off, but that is where you should be parting to come ear to ear. If you part ear to ear, if you have this much hair for the width down here at the ear on one side, you need that exact same amount on the other side. It's balanced. Your haircuts will fall in balance, your colors will look balanced. If you are working on the right side of the head doing color, doing fulls today, if you do small weaves on this side, unless they want something just totally off the wall, out of the box, you're gonna do the exact same thing as close as possible on this side. You would not take slices on one side and weaves on the other side. You wouldn't take chunky weaves on one side and little bitty weaves on the other side. when it falls into its natural position, it's gonna show chunky or more natural or a big slice. When you slice the hair, you are literally taking a section of the hair, that's too big, and then taking a slice of the hair to put in that fold. That's called a slice. A weave is taking a piece of hair, taking your comb, going in and out, up, down, and you have hair, no hair, hair, no hair, okay? That's a weave. You can take that one step further and do a chunky weave. A chunky weave is gonna be big. You went from 10 little pieces to 3 pieces, okay? 3 pieces is not what it's gonna be every time. It could be 2 pieces, it could be 5 pieces, but it's big pieces. Today, because we are going to learn how to put the hair in the full and close the full up and keep that full in place, I feel like slicing will be easier for you. So today we're gonna do one half of the head, not one half of the head, one quadrant of the head. So if you're right-handed, you're most likely gonna work on the right side of the head, on that front quadrant. And when you pick that hair up, you're gonna take a smaller section, and then you're gonna take a little skinny piece of hair off of that. That's called a slice. See how everybody can see through that hair? You don't want it thick. Why do you not want it thick? Yep. So it does not matter if you're saturating it and laying it over like we've been doing a color application, virgin color application, or if you're putting it in a full. You have got to have a small enough section that it's gonna saturate front and back. When you're putting it in a full, you don't have the option to paint the front and paint the back. You're putting that full on the head at that point. And so when you lay that on that full, it's got to automatically be able to saturate through that piece of hair, okay? That full needs to be as close to the scalp as possible. If you take a big chunk of hair, and you're like, we're gonna put every bit of this in that full. Okay? So this is gonna be my full. This lady came in late, and instead of telling her you're not gonna get what you want today, we're gonna do it halfway. We think we're gonna charge her the same. We're putting all that in the hair. All that in the full. Is that gonna look good? Mm-mm. Besides the fact that it's too thick, it's not gonna saturate through. Because that's a big bulk of hair, it automatically, when you pull this hair down, it automatically pushes you about 1/4 inch off the root right there. So what you gonna give her? A root line. You're gonna give her a root line, and most likely she's gonna look like a calico cat. And why? It's not saturating through. So when you pick up this section of hair, if you're not even, and I've seen people do this in weaves too, they'll take this hair, this is thick, and they're not just weaving across that top surface, they're trying to get way in there and take big chunks. It doesn't matter. You dropped out that little piece in the middle. Not gonna matter at all, because guess what's gonna happen? Boom. You still have automatically created about 1/4 inch of root. It's gonna be very obvious. So when you pick up this hair, you see the section here, and you see the part there. That part there is about where your fold's gonna lay. That's that far off of the head. Don't do that. If you do it today, you're gonna see why we don't do that. If you do it on a client, they're gonna not pay you, and you're gonna see why you don't do that. So always start, I shouldn't say always, the girl who does my hair that I love to death, she starts at the top. If you start at the top, you full this out, you've got a full in the hair, then you've got to take that and just keep clipping it over that way. But that's the way she does it. She does it well. I don't do it that way. I'm always like, Michelle, what are you doing? if you start at the bottom, here's my handy dandy clip that I love so much. So if you start at the bottom, you put this hair, you take a little small section down here, drop that out, clip that out of the way. Then when you put that foil there, where does it hang? Okay? If you take that foil and you put that up and you put it over and clip it, and another one over and clip it, the more you handle these foils that are on the head, the more chances you have to wiggle them around, wiggle them loose, and then create more errors that we'll talk about as y'all do them, bleeds and such, okay? So it's easier to start at the bottom. Today, I just want y'all to get the pattern down and to get used to doing foils. Typically, I just took a horizontal part across the ear. Does the hair fall that way though? When it's around the face, does it just fall perfect? Boom, 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 boom. Okay. So if you come in at an angle and come up like that, and you come in going this way up the head, when that hair lays down, when she pulls her hair back, what looks more natural? So if you come in at a horizontal on the head, right up the face, if you come in at that horizontal, she pulls her hair back. Depending on how you did that hair, depending on how you did your technique, slice, weave, chunk, whatever, almost every single time you're going to see line, 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 line when you do that. So if you want to get in the habit of doing this at an angle around the hairline, that would not be a bad thing. But today we're just trying to get the gist of it down. So when we color, and I just grabbed some color back here, level 6. I was just trying to grab some random stuff. I noticed when I was doing this that some of these boxes are not full. The tabs are the same. So this is a brand new box. Like it feels like it's a normal tube of color, and the tabs are the same. If you're in this classroom and you do not use a whole tube of color, and you put a partial tube of color back in the box, which is what I want you to do, you're going to take the tab, flip that out, put that back, and it's going to go back on the shelf that way. That lets everybody know, if they're looking for a 6M, that that's not a full tube of color. Once you finish the tube of color, it is gone. You're not going to get another drop out of it. You throw that tube away, you throw your box away, but you tear this tab off, and we're going to have a little bucket to put it in. That lets us know as the instructors what we need to order, what we got used. That lets us know to check to see if there's more 6M. Is there 10 more tubes of it, or was that the last one and we need to order some more?
We have the tabs in the box.
The tabs, just the tab. So I'm pretty sure that we're going to use this today. That's what's coming off. When this is an empty tube, which this will be an empty tube today, that's what's going to come off. That's what we're going to keep. That's how we keep up with. And that's a great way to do it while you're in the salon too. I prefer to use a color key when you are getting the tube, the color out of the tube. Unfortunately, these little boxes do not allow for you to use a color key, roll that down, and then put it back in the box. So if we ever do use the color key, you may have to unroll that a little bit to kind of flatten it out so that it'll fit back in the box. Okay, so I got the wonky scale. I can't read what that says. So I don't know what that is. That's pound. We're not going to do a pound of nothing. Okay, so these scales are different. You're going to put it on the left. You're going to set gram on the right. When you want to reset that 0, you will hit the one on the left. You'll hit the on, and that'll reset it. I'm going to do 12 grams of color to 12 grams of developer. This color is no good. I can tell by the way it's coming out. So there's no telling how long this partial tube has been in there. We're going to do one side of the head. Go ahead and do go ahead and do 20 color. Cause I want y'all to, I wanna make sure y'all are doing 12 fulls that are like good and saturated. Put the cap back on the color. I always kind of shake the developer, make sure the cap's on it. It should be on it, but always double check, shake that. I'm at 20. You can reset it to 0, or if you just want to do the math, you know that double 20 is
40.
Okay, so I'm gonna bump this up to 40. So 20, 33, gotta kind of go slow, drizzle, drizzle, drizzle. 40. Put the cap back on this developer. Do not sit that developer there, because you know there's a line of people behind you. Same as the shampoo bowls. You pretend like you're the only one using it. Nobody else is behind you. That way you know when I start saying who left the cap off the developer, we now have a bottle of water up here. It was not you, okay? When you mix your color, or when you stir your color, same thing as the lightener. It's not gonna be as bumpy or lumpy as lightener because it's not powder. But you wanna make sure it's mixed really, really good. I walked around to people before and you could see developer on half the bowl and color on the other half. That's not mixed well. So make sure it's mixed well. Some people use a whisk no matter what they're mixing, whether it's color or lightener.
Some color lines you'll have to use a whisk, like Paul Mitchell, they're really clunky.
Yes, it's made with beeswax. And there's other color lines besides Paul Mitchell that's made with beeswax, but for some reason with Paul Mitchell, it's like mixing wax for real. It's some weird stuff. I just like it so much, and I'm not knocking Paul Mitchell. They're a great company. It's a great line if you like it. I don't like it. I've had people offer to give me Paul Mitchell color, and I'm like, I'd rather go buy some. You don't have to use, I typically am not gonna use gloves in a salon to do highlights. Y'all have to, so if you cannot see what I'm doing, this is gonna mess up our video
Be careful, just know that it's kind
at an angle.
of, yeah. Or do you,
Cause I know not everybody can see.
Yeah. I'll turn it around and I'll just do it on you. Yeah.
Okay. So I've already got my chunk of hair up and out of the way, and the only thing that I have out of a clip is that little piece of hair that I'm going to use. So this little bitty piece of hair, if I'm going to do a slice, I'm going to take my little highlight comb and I'm gonna go in. I'm taking that little slice of hair, I'm pulling that up with one hand, pushing it down with the comb with the other, okay? That's not a straight line, I don't like that. Mannequins are funny. So see, you can see through that piece of hair. If y'all can't see, move up here. I assume that if you can't see, and I know you can't see, don't ask me questions later. This is the demo. You will take that piece of hair and pull this up. I fold the piece of foil over my comb. Not everybody does that. That's the way I do it. You don't have to. Some people take the foil and stick it in just like that. That's not neat to me. That foil is every which way. I don't like that. So I just automatically take that, take my comb, slide that under. I hold this hair up. You can see the part or the section on that. That's where you put your comb and your foil. You can feel your comb in that. You pull that down. You just now locked that foil up under that piece of hair. Yes, they've got a piece of foil on the side of their head. I don't care. That's the way it's got to be. So take your product, take your bowl, your product. You don't need like a whole gob on there, but you need enough to saturate it. I start right at maybe an inch down. Put that there. Okay, that's holding that foil at that point. I'm gonna take my hand under that foil, use my hand as a board, and pull that down. Get a little bit more, make sure the ends are saturated, okay? You can see that top is not saturated. It's kind of bucking up a little bit, okay? I do not go in at the root with a straight brush. When you do that, you have a line of demarcation that you're painting right there, okay? I'm gonna come in at an angle and pull that through. That way I can get as close to the edge of that foil as possible. Do not go over the edge of the foil. Do not. Okay? And pull that down. You do not want it on the scalp. If you wanted it on the scalp, then you shouldn't be using a foil. If you go over the edge of that scalp and you close this foil up, I'm gonna take my little tab down here. I'm hooking my comb in it. I'm pulling that up. I'm gonna take my comb, put that, fold it over. I'm gonna take my comb, fold it over. It's there. Do not take that foil and do this number. Do not do that. Does anybody know why not to do that?
Can't get enough oxygen.
That, and you're pushing that product. There's no telling where that product's at. So it may have pushed that product off to the side of that hair. It may have pushed it to the top. It could be doing anything at that point. But you just don't need to fold it up so tight. If you see product outside of that fold at that point, and you lift this up, if there's product right here outside of that fold, guess where it's going to be? Right here. Okay, that's called a bleed. You can do that with lightener, you can do it with color. No matter what, it's called a bleed. You do not want this product in this fold to bleed out and run over onto this piece of hair. That is hard to fix. If it's somewhere in the back of the head, they're not going to see it. That's not great. That's not advisable, but it's not the end of the world. If you do that all around the front of the head and up on the part line, guess what happens? They're going to sit in their car. Petty Betty is going to pick it apart. So you don't want that. My little clip does not come out of the hair. I just let go of the chunk of hair. I take that hair. I'm going to come in. I'm going to lift that up. I'm going to take another maybe, I don't know, 1/4 inch. Try to do at an angle, kind of pointing up. Drop that down. Clip your hair back out of the way that you're not using, okay? We are doing slices again. This is a pretty big chunk of hair. If I only take this little bitty slice, this is what's going to have color. So if I have a 1/4 inch, that might be more of a 1/2 inch, whatever it is, if I have that much hair in each section around the head, and this little bitty bit is all that's getting that low light, is that going to be a good coverage? Nope. If they want subtle, that might be okay. If they have very fine hair, thin hair, not fine, but thin hair, it might be okay. Somebody with thick hair, if they're wanting to see a big change, you're not going to give them a big change. They're going to walk out the door and go, God, I just paid $200 and I have like 20 pieces of hair with color on it. They're not going to be happy. So you have to determine, do they want heavy coverage? Do they want light coverage? How subtle or how dramatic do they want it? Because then if you take a small piece of hair, if you take a smaller piece, you take a section, you take a little slice out. See the difference? So your folds are automatically going to go from 10 to maybe 20 or more on that same section of the head. So you got to determine how much coverage they want. We're still just going to do a slice. I don't like when if my hair's hanging down, I don't like that. I want it out of the way. Do not do what I just did and pull clips off your clothes. Don't get used to doing that. In a salon, it's one thing. State board, they will ding you because at that point, my clip is not sanitary. So see how I just had to reach over my body to lay those foils down? You don't want to do that at all. You don't want to be doing this. That creates a lot of unnecessary strain on your shoulder to be reaching across like that. Plus, it takes more time. So these foils came out of the box that's sitting here. Those boxes are handy dandy as far as they pop up and pop out. But when you get to this point and you start doing it, they fall down in there, and then you're digging trying to get those foils out. So I just always pull foils and have them ready. So I took that half, taking my comb, I'm hooking that in. I've got my section. I'm lifting that up. I can feel where the rat tail of my comb is at. That's going on that line of that section. That foil's probably going to be turned a little bit because it's at an angle. I've locked that down. My hand is right on her chin. I don't care. She'll be okay. She's had this done before. She knows. I do not pile on a whole lot of product right at the root, right at the scalp, because you don't want a lot of product right there that's going to get body heat and run over the edge of that foil. So I'm going to come down. I'm going to put that there. That's locked on the foil at that point. I'm going to use my hand underneath. Then, make sure the ends are covered. Then I'm going to come in at an angle with my brush and hit right at the edge of that foil without going over. Remember when we're doing the virgin application and you do zone 2 first, but you've got to get close enough that you're on the cusp of zone 1, which is the root, which is 1 inch. That body heat kind of pushes it on up into zone 1 even before you get there. Same thing. You don't want to get over that foil. That body heat's going to do that for you. We're going to close this foil up. It's going to hit there. I pinch at the bottom. I lift this up. My comb goes back in there. I hit under. I hook it. I go right on, with the edge of my comb, I go right on the edge of where that hair is. I fold that in. I go right on the edge on the other side. I make a little indentation with the comb, fold that over, boom, you do not touch it again.
Is there one advantage to using the teeth side of the comb to the other?
It doesn't matter. To fold that over, it doesn't matter. I just feel like that's kind of sharper, so and it's just habit too. It's just what I've always done. So today I want y'all to do slices instead of weaves. I'm going to do a weave right here just to show you. I'm going to drop this down. I'm flipping this back out of the way. I'm going to pick up that hair. Again, that section is the same size section as this one. If all these sections are right at that 1/4 of an inch, and then all of a sudden you pick up a section that's a 1/2 inch or an inch, it's not going to look the same. Your weave might be the same, but it's not going to look the same. You've got too much hair within each fold. Okay, so I'm going to weave this out. Boom, 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 boom. Pick that up. Pull that down. So this is about the same amount of hair that's right there. But that top little slice of it, or that top little layer of it, is weaved out instead of sliced out. I'm going to pick up my foil. I'm folding it over. I'm putting my tail of the comb in there. Right on the edge of that root again. I'm pulling that down and holding it. Get you some product on the brush. Come down low. Paint that on. It's on the foil. Come back under with your hand. Use your hand kind of as a board. Paint that on. I'm not putting more product on my brush, okay? I've got enough product on there, and I'm coming in at that angle and hitting that top. fold that up, hook that under. Okay, when I hook that under, what happened? That foil slid down a little bit. Don't focus on that too much. Just fold this over. It covered it up. Now if it slides way down, focus on it. But if it slides down just a little bit, that front, it's not too big of a deal, because when you fold your foil up, it hides it. But see, that's what when I close that up, that top part of that foil kind of come down a little bit. But when you close that up, it's got it. Okay, any questions?
I have a question. What is the difference from the weaving and slicing?
So if you're weaving hair out, it leaves a, okay, so if we take your section right here, if you take your section, I don't like that to be in my way, and you pick this up, if you slice this out, that's a solid piece of hair. You've got just as much that's not going to be in the foil that's going to be in the foil, okay? So if you take this and you come across and you weave, it's almost like piano keys. If you really wanted to spend a lot of time and do a lot of dimension, you could take this and do one color, this another color. They interlock at the top. It gives you a dimension instead of just a straight line of color. So you're going to cover more ground faster with a slice. So if you had somebody who was wanting to change up fast, but not necessarily 100% at one time, you might want to go through and do slices on most of the hair. And then, and just because you do slices in the back, doesn't mean you have to do slices in the front. You might do slices in the back because that's the bulk of her hair. You want to get through it and get it. You don't see back there anyway, unless somebody parts their hair, like, hey, what's going on? How's your roots look back there? You usually don't see it anyway. But around the face, you do slices, you'll see that line all the way around. So you might want to break it up with a weave. You don't have to do a thin weave. Chunky highlights are coming back. I don't know if that's the 90s or the 2000s, but whichever, it's coming back. So when you do a small weave, it gives you that dimensional piece. If you do a chunky weave, you still have dimension, but it's a real thick. So if you had somebody that wanted to look natural, high and low, or just a highlight, you're not going to do a chunky, because that chunky is going to hang in the hair exactly like that, a big stripe. So try to picture what that end result's going to be. If you did a big chunky piece right here, that's right on the side of her head, you're going to have one piece of color, two piece of color, three piece of color right there. That's going to be pretty noticeable if you do it all the way up the side of the head. But if she wants chunky, that's what you would do. Any more questions? So y'all come up here and mix your color.